Manhattan, March 2nd, 2025. The city shimmered, a tapestry of steel and glass reflecting the last defiant streaks of sunset. Detective Isabella Izzy Diaz gripped the steering wheel of her unmarked sedan. The rumble of the FDR drive, a constant hum beneath the classical music, playing softly on her radio. Rain slicked the windshield, blurring the already distorted view of the East River. She was on her way to a clandestine meetup, a shadowy encounter that could very well determine the fate of her current high-stakes investigation. Another thrilling thoughts, Izzy murmured to herself, a sardonic smile playing on her lips. Each case was an unsolved mystery, a journey of discovery into the darker corners of New York's glamorous facade. Tonight's journey was no different. She glanced at the GPS, the glowing arrows stubbornly pointing eastward. The address, a nondescript warehouse in Long Island City, felt like a dead end. A black SUV sped past, cutting her off with an aggressive swerve. Izzy cursed under her breath, gripping the wheel tighter. "Damn reckless drivers," he muttered. The SUV vanished into the maze of traffic, leaving her with a nagging unease. Who were her new clients in this twisted game? And what new depths of depravity would they drag her into? The city's rhythm seemed to quicken, mirroring the unease gripping her heart. The memory flickered in her mind, unbidden and unwelcome. A dingy alleyway in Spanish Harlem, the acrid stench of cheap liquor and fear. A frail old man, bloodied and beaten, pleading for mercy. Two figures looming over him, their faces obscured by shadow. "Remember, Papa," one of them sneered. "This is what happens to those who don't pay what they owe." The echo of that memory sent a shiver down Izzy's spine. The man, a neighborhood barber, had refused to pay protection money to the kings of Spanish Harlem. His boys was now the new sheriff, who was trying to act like they're above it all. Those memories always haunted her, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the city's bright lights. Izzy had always tried to tell Papa not to be so bold, but the man would not listen, as he was very stubborn. Was she heading towards something similar? What were they planning? As the SUV was getting farther, Izzy was starting to wonder if they had found a way out of her plan suddenly. Izzy accelerated, her headlights cutting through the gathering gloom. The rain intensified, washing away the city's grime and leaving only the stark reality of the present. A new case, a new threat, and a city full of secrets waiting to be uncovered. Tonight, she would delve deep into the underbelly of New York, ready to unravel another web of deceit and lies. In that journey of discovery, she would have to steel herself, for she suspected that the unsolved mystery she was about to confront would test her like no other. The warehouse district of Long Island City was a labyrinth of decaying brick and rusted metal, a fitting backdrop for the sordid deal Izzy was about to make. She parked the sedan beneath the skeletal remains of an elevated train track, the rhythmic clatter of a passing subway car amplifying the tension. The heavy air hung thick with the scent of diesel and decay. She exited the car, pulling her trench coat tighter against the chilling rain. The address on the GPS matched a warehouse looming ahead, its windows dark and vacant, exuding an aura of menace. As Izzy approached the warehouse, a pair of headlights pierced the gloom. A sleek black Chrysler 300C screeched to a halt in front of her, blocking her path. Two figures emerged, their faces obscured by the shadows of the brimmed hats. It was Angelo the Hammer Martucci and his right hand, Tony Knuckles Barbella, both of them infamous for their dirty hands and how they would do anything to reach a deal. "Detective Diaz, isn't it?" Angelo growled, his voice a gravelly rasp that echoed in the desolate space. Tony was ready to put her in her place. "Didn't expect you to show up. Thought you had a date with justice or something." Izzy glared at him, her eyes piercing, her tone calm, her voice as steel. "I'm right on time and have a feeling," she said, keeping her voice measured. "Let's get this over with," Angelo chuckled. A dry, humorless sound. "Not so fast, detective. We have a few questions of our own." He gestured toward the trunk of the Chrysler. "Open it." Izzy hesitated, sensing a trap. "What's in the trunk, Angelo?" "Something to make the unsolved mystery a little more." Angelo smirked, showing bad teeth. "Interesting." Izzy stepped closer, her hand instinctively reaching for the Glock holstered beneath her coat. It was then that Angelo gave a nod, and Tony took her down to the ground. "I am the law," Izzy screamed before getting knocked out by Tony. Tony opened the trunk. Inside, A duffel bag filled with bricks of cocaine sat stacked high, and the feeling she felt when she saw all of it had the feeling of her getting caught. A cruel grin spread across Angelo's face. "Looks like you're now associated to the bricks," Angelo stated as he put all of her fingerprints on it. "We need you, or we need the info, and you were bold and too close for comfort." As Angelo finished his sentence, she could hear a team coming to her. "Think again, because now I have a feeling that the game is gonna be mine, as it has always been," Izzy screamed as Angelo drove away. Izzy quickly reached for her jacket, and with a quick movement of her hands, she placed a tracker at the car and did a quick call. She was ready. And for those men, it was the end of the line. The biting New York wind whipped around Izzy as the squad car sped through the grimy streets towards the 18th precinct. The neon glow of Times Square faded into the distance, replaced by the harsh glare of the squad car's interior. Handcuffed in the back seat, Izzy maintained her steely composure, though the cold metal against her wrists served as a stark reminder of her predicament. The sirens wailed, cutting through the city's cacophony like a desperate cry. Each wail fueled her resolve. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. She would use every ounce of her cunning to turn the tables on Angelo and his cronies, expose their corruption and bring them to justice. The 18th precinct, a fortress of brick and bureaucratic indifference, loomed before them. The air inside was thick with the stale scent of coffee, disinfectant, and despair. The fluorescent lights hummed, casting a sickly pallor on the faces of the officers going about their grim duties. Izzy was processed with cold efficiency. Fingerprints, mugshots, the demeaning ritual of surrendering her belongings. Each step was designed to strip away her dignity, to break her spirit. But Izzy refused to yield. She moved through the motions with quiet defiance, her gaze unwavering. This unsolved mystery would not define her. Would not define her. This thrilling story was far from over. She would turn the narrative on its head. After the initial processing, she was led to a holding cell, a cramped, concrete box with a steel bunk and a grimy toilet. The door clanged shut, the sound echoing in the confined space. The weight of her situation pressed down on her, but Izzy refused to succumb to despair. This was her new battlefield, and she would fight from within. As she sat on the edge of the bunk, a voice broke the silence. "New fish?" Izzy turned to see a man sitting on the opposite bunk, his face etched with weariness and resignation. He was a small-time construction worker, not a dangerous criminal. "Name's Matteo," he said, extending a hand. "You don't look like you belong here." Izzy hesitated, then shook his hand. "They say I was caught with something that doesn't belong to me," Matteo nodded, a knowing glint in his eye. "Framed." "It appears so," Matteo sighed. "Welcome to the club, Carter and Sullivan, right?" Izzy's eyebrows furrowed. "You know them?" Matteo chuckled, a bitter, humorless sound. "Know them? They put me here, piled drugs in my truck, claimed I was running a smuggling operation. I'm just a carpenter." "What happened?" Izzy asked, her curiosity piqued. "They railroaded me. The evidence was planted, the witnesses paid off, and my lawyer was useless. I lost everything. My job, my family, my reputation." His voice cracked with emotion. "They have something on the prosecutor so they can just shut the cases down." Izzy listened intently, her mind racing. Carter and Sullivan, the same names Angelo had mentioned. It was becoming clearer than ever that a wide corruption was in play, a systemic cancer eating away at the heart of the city. Izzy knew she needed to get her hands on the case to help Matteo and knew what everyone was up against. "This is where our journey of discovery begins," she murmured, more to herself than to Matteo. The unsolved mystery of her own frame-up was now intertwined with Matteo's story. They were both pawns in a much larger game, and Izzy was determined to expose the players. Officer Danny Keller sat hunched over his computer terminal at the 18th precinct, the hum of the fluorescent lights a monotonous drone in the otherwise quiet room. It was late, the shift winding down, but Danny couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. Detective Diaz's case gnawed at him, the way it had all unfolded so perfectly. The casual way Carter and Sullivan had handled it. It all felt too tidy. Too wrong. He pulled up Mateo's case file, the one Detective Diaz was just in the cell with, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Construction worker arrested for trafficking, the summary read. Evidence: large quantity of cocaine found in vehicle. Case dismissed due to lack of key witness who decided to be at large. Danny frowned. The details seemed flimsy, the explanation weak. Danny then pulled up any and all charges related to the hammer, and that case never got solved. It had the same story, witnesses go away. He then looked for cases that were attached to Tony Knuckles, and he saw a pattern where there was no charges. Danny was putting the story together, and he was starting to realize what type of men he was working with. Driven by a gnawing sense of injustice, Danny delved deeper, pulling up every case file connected to Carter and Sullivan. The more he researched, the more uneasy he became. Minor traffic stops escalating into drug charges, witnesses disappearing, case dismissed to non-payment. It was a pattern, a systematic abuse of power, preying on the city's most vulnerable. He remembers always hearing, "If you don't like it, then leave." But Daniel was a never-quit type of man. As he delved deeper, Danny felt a surge of anger, and the frustration and rage he felt. He knew he had to come clean. They could be hurting dozens of innocent people, ruining lives with impunity. He thought of the countless unsolved mysteries these cases represented, the untold suffering they caused. That's where the flashback comes in. Flashbacks start. A dimly lit bar in Spanish Harlem, the air thick with cigarette smoke and the scent of cheap beer. 3 men sat huddled at a corner table, their faces etched with despair. "I lost everything," Mateo said, his voice barely a whisper. "My job, my family, everything. They took everything from me." His name was Carlos said. "I cannot ever see my family as they were afraid of what they might do to me." Carlos slammed his fist on the table, his eyes blazing with anger. "They think they can get away with this, ruining our lives. Who are we fighting against? We gotta do something," Miguel said, his voice trembling with fear. And all was heard was a sad song. "We can't let them get away with this." Flashback ended. Danny closed his eyes. The image of the 3 men seared into his mind. He knew he had to act. He couldn't stand by and watch these corrupt cops destroy lives with impunity. It was a terrifying prospect, risking his career, his reputation, even his safety. He understood what everyone was going through and was ready to give everything. However, he was a good man, and did not want that to impact him. He knew if he spoke about this with someone that the trust would need to be 100%, but looking at their cases, it has led the people that they had worked with being on the street. "The only way's out," Danny said. "This has been a journey of discovery," Danny said. As the rain was picking up, Danny Keller's heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the otherwise quiet apartment. Outside, the rain continued its relentless assault on New York, mirroring the storm brewing inside him. His apartment, a small, cramped space above a Chinese takeout on the Lower East Side, felt like a pressure cooker. The weight of what he was about to do pressed down on him, suffocating him with doubt and fear. He sat at his old, rickety desk, the glow of the laptop screen illuminating his pale face. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling slightly. Each keystroke felt like a step closer to the abyss, a point of no return. He was about to betray his fellow officers, risk his career, maybe even his life. He knew he had to be careful, meticulous. He opened a secure email account, using a burner email he'd set up weeks ago for just this purpose. He typed slowly, carefully, choosing his words with precision. He wasn't a writer, not some thrilling story author. He was just a cop, trying to do the right thing. He attached all of his data and decided that there was not much he can do other than what he needed to do. "I've started what I can." He remembered his dog Buster. He would greet Buster as he was his only friend, and that helped to clear his mind, and he could focus on what needed to be done. His hands were starting to tremble, and he didn't like what he was having to do, but no one was able to help. "This is a journey of discovery," he said to himself. As he typed, his mind raced. He pictured Carter and Sullivan, their faces flushed with anger, their eyes burning with malice. What would they do if they found out it was him? He imagined the consequences, the ridicule, the ostracism, the threats. He had to keep everything 100% perfect. Danny knew that this was his calling, but he had made a decision, and did not know what was going to happen. He did not want to back out, but he was getting nervous as there may not have been a lot that he can do. He just hoped what he was putting was what the audience needed. Taking a deep breath, Danny began to type once more, but then suddenly he could hear the sound of a bark. It was Buster. Oh, how Danny needed him more than ever before. Buster was a small, scruffy terrier mix he'd rescued from a local shelter. Buster was more than just a pet. He was his confidant, his source of comfort, his only real friend. "Hey, boy," Danny murmured, scratching Buster behind the ears. "Everything's gonna be all right." Buster seemed to sense his unease, nudging his hand with his wet nose. After getting pets from Buster, he was able to collect himself and get to typing and send the data. Now all he has to do is wait, with his finger on send and getting ready to send. And he just hoped that what he's about to do has a new thrilling story. That no one can stop what it is. Talia Izzy Diaz sat on the hard bunk, the chill, the concrete seeping into her bones. The weight of her mission pressed down on her, heavier than the steel door that sealed her inside. She could feel the pressure building, both inside and out. Keller's actions, while noble, had put them both in the crosshairs. The corrupt cops would be on high alert, sniffing out any hint of betrayal. And her own people, she knew they were watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But the timing had to be just right. A muffled voice crackled through the cheap speaker system of the jail. "Diaz, you have a visitor." Her heart skipped a beat. It was too soon. They couldn't risk exposing her now. Now, of all times, with a storm about to unfold with this thrilling story. She's already used up her get-out-of-jail-free card with her team leader, and this one could put her out for good. But she was one the best they had. A stern-faced guard led her to a small, windowless room. Seated at a metal table was Agent Marcus Cole, her longtime mentor and handler. His expression was grim, his eyes betraying a hint of disappointment. He had been there for her more than anyone else. "Izzy," he said, his voice low and measured. "What the hell is going on? You know we needed you on the streets doing the work, not in there and trying to fight that battle. You've stirred up a hornet's nest." "It was necessary, Marcus," Izzy replied, meeting his gaze without flinching. "There's a systemic corruption, but I know there are bad people doing bad things." Marcus shook his head. "You went off script, Izzy. You know the rules. You put the entire mission at risk. You were more than aware of that." "I had to follow my gut," Izzy insisted. "I couldn't stand by and watch these guys destroy lives." Marcus sighed. "I get it, Izzy. You have a good heart. I'm also aware this reminds you of what happened to Papa, and that this case means more to you than anything else. But this isn't about your personal vendettas. This is about national security. Now you are doing things. You need to break off." Izzy's jaw tightened. "Break off? Leave these people to rot? I can't do that." "You don't have a choice," Marcus said, his voice hardening. "I'm pulling you out. We'll handle it from here." Izzy felt a surge of anger, but she forced herself to remain calm. She knew arguing with Marcus would be futile. He was just following orders. "There's something else, Marcus," Izzy said, lowering her voice. "There's a connection from an outside source that helps this team and makes sure things go their way. We're not sure who it is." "What are you talking about?" Marcus asked, his eyes narrowing. "I found out during my trip here, and it's something you must be aware of. We have an outsider from your department." Marcus stared at her, his expression unreadable. "Get out, Izzy, you're done. And trust me, I wanted to know this, but I cannot let them know you told me this, as they are very close." Izzy knew she was walking a fine line, but she had no choice. The lives of innocent people were at stake. It was the first rule her papa ever taught her, so she has to keep her word. It was the way. After everything, they will look at someone for anything. "You think this is easy to say, but now I know there are people who will be impacted," she whispered. "Please find them." Back in her cramped cell, the fluorescent light seemed to pulse with a malevolent intensity. Marcus's words echoed in Izzy's mind, a chilling premonition of betrayal. A high-level mole within the FBI. Someone actively working to protect the corrupt cops and the drug cartel they served. The game had just become exponentially more dangerous. Izzy knew she had to act fast. But how? She was isolated, cut off from her team and under constant surveillance. Every move she made would be scrutinized. Every word she spoke could be used against her. The need was clear. and Izzy needed to find someone to warn now. But who was she going to look for? Should she try calling for backup? Should she try and find her way and escape? How could she let the FBI team know? She needed to think, but as much as this story was thrilling, it got harder for everyone. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and focused. Her years of training kicked in, her mind sifting through every detail she'd observed, every conversation she'd overheard. An idea began to take shape, a risky plan that could either expose the mole or get her killed. The hours dragged on, each minute an eternity. The rhythmic clang of the cell doors, the muffled conversations of the guards, the distant wail of sirens, all amplified in the oppressive silence. Finally, as the sky began to lighten, Izzy saw her opportunity. A new guard, fresh-faced and nervous, was making his rounds. She recognized him, a rookie, barely out of the academy. He looked like he wanted to help, and all she needed was his help so she could tell one of his friends. "Officer," Izzy called out, keeping her voice low and respectful. The rookie hesitated, then approached her cell. "Yeah, I need to report something," Izzy said, her eyes meeting his. "It's about the Carter and Sullivan case." The rookie's face clouded with suspicion. "What about it?" "There's more to this than you know," Izzy said, her voice urgent. "There's a leak inside the FBI, and a bad one too. Someone is informing the cartels and helping Carter and Sullivan." The rookie's eyes widened. "What are you talking about?" "There is a leak, an FBI agent who you may know that is causing a big situation." The rookie may not have known a lot about the agent, but Izzy was hoping that with what she had, it would work. "I can't just make it seem as everything as I've worked up has gone up and I cannot save everyone." This was probably one of the truest stories Izzy ever gave. "It's something big is all I ask." "I can't do that," the rookie said, shaking his head. "I'm just a guard. Please," Izzy begged. "This isn't just about me. It's about the city, people who need justice. But you must tell someone that I need to be heard, and that they tell Marcus." The rookie hesitated, his internal conflict evident on his face. He wanted to do the right thing, but he was afraid. Izzy could see the doubt in his eyes, the fear of the unknown. But she also saw a flicker of hope, a spark of integrity that she could ignite. "I just need you to tell someone," Izzy said, her voice pleading. "If you do that, please tell Marcus. I will give you everything you need and how it happened. If you don't tell me, then a lot is going to happen, as I've seen everything, and then I will have no way to work it all up, and that if anything will ruin things for everyone. This is something that only you can work up." The warehouse district was a chaotic symphony of sirens and shouting, the air thick with the acrid scent of gunpowder and the adrenaline-fueled screams of law enforcement. The FBI raid was in full swing, a coordinated assault designed to cripple the drug cartel and expose Carter and Sullivan's corrupt network. Or at least, that's what everyone thought it would do. Agent Price, his face grim, led the charge, a phalanx of armed agents sweeping through the maze of corridors and loading docks. But something was wrong. Terribly wrong. The warehouse was eerily empty. A few low-level thugs scattered like rats, easily apprehended, but the heavy hitters were nowhere to be found. The millions in drugs they were expecting vanished as if it was just a story being told to fool others. The main characters had flown the nest, and what was going to work had led others away. "Where are they?" Price barked into his radio, his voice tight with frustration. "Every room is clear, but we are taking down some gang members," was the response. "But we cannot guarantee." The realization dawned on Price with chilling certainty. They'd been betrayed. Someone had tipped off the cartel, giving them ample time to evacuate and disappear. The thrilling story was now a disaster. "Seal the perimeter," Price ordered, his voice laced with urgency. Nobody gets in or out, but it was too late. A convoy of black SUVs roared out of a side exit, tires screeching, disappearing into the night. Price watched them go, his fists clenched in impotent rage. The journey of discovery had hit a dead end, a brick wall of treachery and deceit. Back inside the warehouse, the scene was one of controlled chaos. Agents secured the few remaining perps, collecting evidence and documenting the scene. But the atmosphere was heavy with disappointment and suspicion. "How did this happen?" one agent muttered, shaking his head in disbelief. It was like they knew we were coming. Price didn't respond. He knew the answer. Someone within their ranks was working against them, feeding information to the enemy. The hunt for Carter and Sullivan had just become a hunt for a ghost, a shadowy figure who could undermine their entire operation. He knew this was something he had to now deal with, as he also got played. Agent Daniel Price stood in his dimly lit office at FBI headquarters, the city lights painting distorted patterns on the rain-streaked windows. The failed raid on the cartel warehouse replayed in his mind, a relentless loop of frustration and humiliation. He'd walked right into a trap, and the knowledge gnawed at him, fueling a burning desire for answers. He'd spent years building a reputation for incorruptibility, for unwavering dedication to justice. Now, that reputation was tarnished, his credibility questioned. More importantly, innocent lives were at risk. Carter and Sullivan were still out there, protected by a network of corruption that reached into the very heart of his organization. Price slammed his fist on the desk, the sound echoing in the silent room. "This isn't just about catching corrupt cops anymore," he muttered to himself. "This is about saving the people." He activated a secure line, his voice tight with controlled fury. "Get me everything you have on the operational intel for the warehouse raid. Every communication, every report, every name. I want it all, and I want it now." Hours passed in a blur of data analysis and cross-referencing. Price meticulously examined every detail of the operation, searching for any hint of a security breach. He interviewed members of his team, probing their memories, their loyalties, their every word, but nothing seemed to add up. The team had been handpicked, vetted, and trusted. Then, a pattern emerged. A series of secure communications, brief and cryptic, between a high-ranking FBI official and a known associate of the cartel. The information was vague, but the timing was undeniable. Each communication coincided with a key decision or movement in the operation. Price felt a cold dread creep into his heart. The betrayal cut deep, a sharp sting of disillusionment. He wasn't just investigating corrupt cops or a rogue cartel. He was facing a systemic rot that threatened to undermine everything he believed in. This thrilling story was now a fight for the soul of his agency. He needed to move carefully. He couldn't trust anyone. He was alone now, and was starting to face that those or his partners may have gotten away, or are planning to. He needed to figure out what he has done. All of the stress and problems that had surrounded him had made a toll for those who were trying to help him. He needed to work, and he had one objective in mind. "I'm going to bring them down," Price whispered, his voice laced with steel. "The longer this journey of discovery continues, the longer I can't protect those whom need protecting. It ends now." The tension in the 18th precinct was palpable, a thick, suffocating air of distrust and paranoia. Agent Price walked through the corridors, his face a mask of grim determination. He needed to play his cards carefully, feigning ignorance while gathering information and identifying the mole within the FBI. He found Sullivan leaning against a wall, a picture of casual indifference. "Agent Price," Sullivan said, a hint of a smirk playing on his lips. "What brings you back to our humble precinct? Find anything interesting?" Price studied him, his eyes cold and assessing. Sullivan had been involved in every aspect of the operation, privy to all the sensitive intel. He was either a pawn or a player, a victim or a perpetrator. "Just tying up loose ends, Sullivan," Price replied, keeping his tone neutral. "Making sure we didn't miss anything." "Well, you won't find anything here," Sullivan said, his gaze unwavering. "We're just small-town cops trying to do our jobs." Price chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "Is that what you tell yourself, Sullivan? That you're just doing your job?" "What's that supposed to mean?" Sullivan asked, his voice hardening. "It means I think this partnership has to come to an end. We're too different," Price added. "Maybe. You're just some pawn being used. It's sad how a story can be twisted, and it can be so thrilling that things just don't add up." Sullivan's eyes narrowed. "I don't like what you're implying, Agent." "Maybe you should," Price said, stepping closer. "Because I have a feeling this journey of discovery for you is coming to end. Now." Before things could get any worse, Izzy yelled, "Price!" She needed to tell him something right now so everything made sense. I need to tell you about someone. There's a leak inside your operation that you may know on a personal level." Price turned his gaze from Sullivan to Izzy, his heart sinking. He had hoped to keep her out of this, to protect her from the coming storm. "What are you talking about, Diaz?" Price asked, keeping his voice low. "Agent Peterson is with the cartel," Izzy said, her voice barely a whisper. "He's been feeding them information, protecting Carter and Sullivan, and sabotaging your investigation." "Peterson?" Price asked, his voice laced with disbelief. "That's impossible. I've worked with Peterson for years. He's the last person who would turn. He's dirty." "Price," Izzy insisted, her eyes pleading. "I have proof." Price hesitated, torn between loyalty and suspicion. He trusted Peterson with his life. To think that he was being played was something he had never thought of, but, as a thrilling story can show, never judge a book. Izzy could see the doubt in his eyes, the internal struggle. She knew she had to convince him, to make him see the truth. "He set you up, Price," Izzy said, her voice urgent. "The raid on the warehouse. It was a setup. Peterson knew we were coming. I can't tell you everything, as that will hurt Marcus with this, as he cares for me. And I care for him, but you have to see what I can see." Price stared at her, his mind racing. He couldn't believe it, but he couldn't dismiss it either. Izzy was too smart, too experienced to be wrong. He needed to investigate, to confirm or deny her claims. But how could he trust anyone? He paused, thinking about how he has a journey of discovery and the new case to know. The pieces of the puzzle started to fall into place. He had a sinking feeling about something that just did not add up. If Peterson was the leak, then everything could fall apart so easily. The air in the interrogation room hung thick with unspoken tension. Izzy sat across from Agent Price, her expression unreadable, her mind racing through 1,000 calculations. She had planted the seed of doubt. Now it was time to cultivate it, to offer Price a path forward. "Peterson is your problem, Agent Price, not mine. I have a lead." Izzy paused, her gaze intense. "There's a deal going down tonight. Carter and Sullivan with the cartel. Peterson gave them the location for them all to meet." Price listened intently, his face a mask of cautious skepticism. He was walking a tightrope, balancing trust and suspicion, loyalty and betrayal. "Where? When?" he asked, and it was something big. "The old docks, and it all has a thrilling story, or has it always?" she said. "Midnight at Pier 84. We cannot be wrong, as it's our shot." Izzy knew she couldn't give Price all the details. She needed to protect her sources, to maintain control of the operation. But she needed his resources, his manpower, to pull this off. All the people have been calling and asking, and at this point no one knows. It was a cluster. "I need 2 things, Agent Price," Izzy said, her voice firm. "First, I need access to your tactical team. Second, I need you to trust me." Price hesitated, his internal conflict evident on his face. Trust was a rare commodity these days, especially in his line of work. But he also saw the determination in Izzy's eyes, the unwavering commitment to justice. "Okay," he said, his voice laced with caution. "You have your team with what you need." Izzy nodded. "There's one more thing," she said. "I need to talk to someone. An officer at the 18th Precinct, Daniel Keller." Price frowned. "What does he have to do with this?" "He's a good cop, Agent Price. He's a good cop, Agent Price. He may not know it, but he has been doing all, and he will not turn. Let's hope his journey of discovery gives the people a thrill," Izzy said, keeping her tone neutral. Price stared at her, his mind racing. He knew all the data he needed now to move forward with the play he has been wanting. The only option was to strike. Danny's phone vibrated on his desk, a private number he knew to answer. "Keller speaking," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Keller, this is Izzy. It's time to get ready to strike. Pier 84 was a desolate wasteland under the cloak of midnight. Rain lashed down, turning the weathered wood slick and treacherous. The air hung thick with the smell of salt, diesel, and the metallic tang of anticipation. This was it. The culmination of weeks of planning, plotting, and maneuvering. The thrilling story was about to reach its climax. Agent Price, his face grim, led a team of hand-picked FBI agents toward the pier, their movements silent and precise. He trusted no one but these men. The few he knew were clean and dedicated to justice. He'd briefed them on the situation, on Peterson's betrayal, and on the desperate need to bring down the corrupt cops and the cartel. The operation was his, and it would fall apart quickly. As they approached the pier, they could hear the muffled voices and the faint glow of lights emanating from a dilapidated warehouse at the far end. Inside, Carter and Sullivan met the local enforcers, and everything was about to come to light. Izzy, hidden in the shadows, watched with bated breath. She knew that Peterson was the one to lead them, and he could expose her location with the click of a finger. But now this was a chance to do all of what she can. All was about to break. The raid would never be good if someone was to lead everything down a rabbit hole. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Peterson, his face obscured by the brim of his hat. He spoke into a radio, his voice low and urgent. "Everything is in place. Get ready to move." Price gave a silent signal, and the team sprang into action. They swarmed the warehouse, surrounding it on all sides, cutting off any escape routes. The raid was on. Inside, chaos erupted. Gunfire echoed, shattering the silence of the night. Cartel members screamed and scattered, scrambling for cover. Carter and Sullivan, their faces etched with panic, exchanged frantic glances. They knew they'd been betrayed. All that they knew and what was happening to them and how they got to this story was now falling. "Move," Carter shouted, pushing through the crowd. "We gotta get out of here." They sprinted towards a back exit, their eyes darting nervously, hoping to escape the approaching storm. Peterson, his face a mask of cold fury, blocked their path. "Where do you think you're going?" he hissed, his voice laced with venom. "What the hell is going on, Peterson?" Carter demanded, his voice trembling with rage. "I do not understand why you would lead all of this. From this point it's over, Carter," Peterson said, drawing his weapon. "You've outlived your use." It was all to plan to use you, abuse you, and throw you all away before Peterson could make a move. A figure sprang from the shadows. Izzy tackled him, sending them both crashing to the ground. The two struggled fiercely, trading blows in the narrow confines of the warehouse. Price burst through the door, his weapon drawn. He froze, his eyes widening in shock as he saw Izzy grappling with Peterson. This journey has been a thrilling story, and never did he think it was to lead others the way to hurt people. "Freeze, Peterson!" Price shouted, his voice ringing with authority. "You're under arrest!" Peterson froze, his face a mask of disbelief. He'd been exposed. His world was about to crumble. Suddenly, Carter and Sullivan charged forward, using the chaos as cover. They crashed through a window and disappeared into the night, their escape momentarily secured. They fled through the pouring rain, their feet pounding on the slick pavement. They were desperate, their careers, their freedom, their lives hanging in the balance. But their journey was far from over, and it was time for everything to come to an end. The morning after the raid dawned gray and bleak over New York, mirroring the somber mood that had settled over the city. The thrilling story of Carter and Sullivan's downfall was splashed across every news outlet, a stark reminder of the corruption that festered beneath the city's gleaming surface. At the 18th precinct, the atmosphere was suffocating. Officers walked on eggshells, their faces etched with fear and uncertainty. The Internal Affairs Division had descended like a swarm of locusts, reviewing every file, every procedure, every decision. The entire precinct was under scrutiny, its reputation tarnished beyond repair. The task force that Peterson and Price were a part of has had a lot to deal with. All that have lied and they did not know. The new journey will be hard. Across town, in a sterile holding cell at FBI headquarters, Peterson sat slumped in a chair, his face a mask of despair. The weight of his betrayal had finally crashed down on him, crushing his spirit and destroying his career. His life was over, his legacy forever stained with corruption. And he deserved every bit of it, many thought. Carter and Sullivan, meanwhile, found themselves in an even more dire situation. After a frantic, rain-soaked escape, they'd been apprehended hiding in a dilapidated motel in New Jersey. Their dreams of freedom dashed against the cold reality of their crimes. They faced a litany of charges: conspiracy, drug trafficking, obstruction of justice, and a host of other felonies that could land them behind bars for decades. In a cramped interrogation room, Carter sat hunched over, his hands trembling. The bravado he'd displayed for so long had evaporated, replaced by a gnawing fear for his future. He was 40, was still trying to work things up. He just hoped that they did not think of the bad. It wasn't supposed to end like this, he muttered, his voice cracking with emotion. The point being, it can't last forever, the guards were saying. He thought of his daughter, Sarah, a bright, bubbly 10-year-old who loved him unconditionally. He'd been trying to see her a few times a month to become a better father. He was worried about what would happen now. It was always about her, Carter whispered, tears streaming down his face. I just wanted to give her a good life. He looked up to the guards and started to beg. But now this is going to change everything, he screamed. Whether he was being honest or not, the damage was done. The repercussions irreversible. The thrilling story of their rise and fall had come to a devastating end, leaving a trail of shattered lives and broken dreams in its wake. The journey started and ended. The city skyline shimmered through the panoramic windows of Agent Price's office, a breathtaking vista that felt oddly detached from the grim realities playing out on the streets below. Talia Izzy Diaz stood before him, her face etched with a weariness that belied her steely exterior. The thrill had died, and a need to heal what others had done to this all was the main task. It's done then, Price said, breaking the silence. Carter, Sullivan, Peterson, they're all facing justice. Izzy nodded, her gaze fixed on the city lights. But the corruption is still there, Agent Price, and that journey is never really gonna end, Price sighed. I know, but now we need a good, thrilling story. The system is damaged, trust is broken. He ran a hand through his short-cropped hair. This is going to take time to fix. And that time needs to be now, not tomorrow. A voice came from the door and in came Marcus. Price, I know we have had our past, but you may be the only person that can come forth and fix. Izzy looked at Marcus in the eye and saw it all. She stepped up and said, it's something only I can say. It's your turn. Price raised an eyebrow. She paused, her eyes meeting his. You know what to do. Price frowned. That's not necessary, Diaz. You've earned this. This isn't something you should just hand off. It has to be done, right? It's what's best for the long run, Agent Price, and you more than anyone knows it, Izzy said, shaking her head. This isn't about me. This is about saving the city, about restoring faith in the system. You are right for the part because you can't be bought for. Izzy has put so much work that it was difficult for her to move around and think this wasn't my call and wasn't one I wanted, she whispered. It's time for me to move on, to let the new blood move forward. Price was reluctant, but he understood. He'd seen the toll this case had taken on Izzy, the way it had chipped away at her soul. She needed to step away, to find her center, to heal from the wounds of betrayal. The journey was not worth continuing, and there are other stories to be written. Where will you go? Price asked, his voice soft. Izzy shrugged, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. The wind will take me, she said. There is still more for me to do that can help others. Price extended his hand. Thank you, Agent Diaz, for everything. Izzy shook his hand firmly. Don't let me down, Agent Price. The city is counting on you. She was hoping there was light at the end of the road. It may be gone and soon everyone can rest, and the thrill can now make everyone happy. Agent Price stood at his office window, the sprawling cityscape reflecting in his weary eyes. He had just finished a difficult phone call with Marcus Cole, the details of which left a bitter taste in his mouth. The thrill was gone now. All that was left was to start a new thrilling story, one that he could actually be proud of. Izzy had just walked in and he wanted to help get what he could. Agent Price looks back and says, I have some data that may shock and awe you, but I know everything. And the only reason you had to stop here was because your team has to move on to some people. The team? Izzy asked. We still needed to wrap it all up to make sure these sick people get everything as it can. Agent Price looked as if he was about to tell one of his greatest secrets. Izzy, your team may be too close to this case to the point that it may impact you from a personal standpoint. She starts to look around in hopes that she can find anything. What does this journey get me? The work was not on the books and everything here has been a waste because you can get taken. But know this, in the moment of time when everything was made, you were going to be used for something else. I cannot tell it to you, but I want you to look where they lead you. Agent Price tells his most trustworthy. There is more than meets the eye, and it's best they move you from this, or there is not a chance for things to go down for the better. She took off from the premises after asking what made you come clean. Agent Price started to look back to a moment that he did not see. Then he found out that he had a partner as well, but he had no idea at all. He asked the assistant to send some data from all of his past work, and then that's where he found out. Things could not go the way they are heading. He looked up to the sky and started to speak. I had never had friends or family, and when they were kind to me, it seemed nice. I never thought I had someone or was going to amount to anything. And there he said it. Everything was going to fall in place for him, or it seems. The broken lights in the building, the fact that it happened during the night, the whole plan. I've seen too many things broken, Price said softly, almost to himself. Too many good people twisted. If he was going to do this, then this journey is going to come full circle, and that people need to stop hurting people to get where they are trying to go. The first rays of dawn painted the Manhattan skyline in hues of gold and rose, a promise of a new day, a fresh start. Agent Daniel Price stood on the rooftop of FBI headquarters, watching as the city slowly awoke from its slumber. He knew a long and difficult road lay ahead, rebuilding trust within the agency, dismantling the remaining pockets of corruption. But for the first time in a long time, he felt a glimmer of hope. He was reviewing the faces of the new team and was going over why he picked them out and how the pieces were all going to fall. As for all of them, and for the audience, they had a thrilling story that needed to be told for others. It has made things work. Now everything was just time. The journey for everything was about to begin. However, it was not. Down below, on the street, a black sedan idled, waiting. Talia Izzy Diaz emerged from the building, a small duffel bag slung over her shoulder. She walked with a newfound lightness in her step, the weight of the past lifted from her shoulders. She had done her part, played her role, and brought everything and everyone to new terms. She may have given her all. She had helped someone find theirs. The thrilling game was over. All is well. Marcus met her at the curb, a rare smile gracing his lips. "Ready for the next one?" he asked. Izzy nodded, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Always. She trusted Marcus a little more for showing his vulnerable side, but was grateful. And that was what happened. As the sedan pulled away, heading towards a new horizon, a new chapter, Izzy glanced back at the city, at the towering buildings, the bustling streets, the endless web of stories waiting to be uncovered. She knew that the fight for justice was never truly over, that the shadows of corruption would always linger, waiting for an opportunity to strike. But she also knew that there were good people like Agent Price out there, willing to stand up and fight, to shine a light in the darkness. For Izzy, there was no reason to hold back, and she is looking to do the best and most all. "This journey of discovery for me was one I will not forget," she said. Inside FBI headquarters, Agent Price walked into his office, his face set with determination. He pulled up a file on his computer screen. Operation Clean Sweep. This was going to be his new focus, his new mission, to rid the agency of corruption and restore faith in the system. He knew it would be a long and arduous battle, but he was ready for the fight. He just hoped everything would be worth it and will lead to more to come. As for Izzy and all of hers, good luck. The journey of Detective Diaz offers powerful lessons. Integrity matters, even when surrounded by corruption. Like Officer Keller, standing up for what's right can be terrifying but also profoundly rewarding. The story highlights that sometimes you need to let go of being good so you can do better. Trust your instincts as Izzy did, but also be prepared to question them. Recognize that even seemingly trustworthy individuals might have ulterior motives. Building meaningful relationships requires honest and being able to come to terms with the lies that they had to put up with. The road that you had is just the first step. Be prepared to make difficult choices, even if they mean stepping back to enable others to take the lead. It takes true strength to recognize when your role has ended and to allow someone else to carry the torch. Ultimately, the thrilling story underscores the importance of resilience in the face of adversity. Even when betrayed, manipulated, or faced with overwhelming odds, holding on to your values and fighting for justice can lead to a new dawn. The best outcome is to have fun and be happy with what you have. Embrace each challenge as an opportunity for growth, and never forget that what you must ask is where you need to go and what you need to do. With that, you will have a fun time.